Hey, this is Jared and Nate at eCarrier Check. We're excited to go live on Friday. Today we're talking about brokering 101, Nate. Should be kind of a fun day. I wouldn't mind even talking about the actual, week as well. How was the week? We've had a lot of good questions, so we'll be talking about some of those specific to brokering. Today's brokering 101. But Nate, obviously we work with a lot of brokers, right? We have a lot of brokers that are on eCarrier Check, and we're helping them grow their business and find carriers they wouldn't have. Tell me, Nate, how does eCarrier Check specifically help brokers, in all aspects? What can we do to help?
Yeah, definitely. With brokers that we see, on a daily basis, either they're new or they're older. With eCarrier Check, we're able to help you find leads through the carriers that you're needing. If you have a niche and maybe your niche is flatbed, well, let us help you find some flatbed carriers, right? Or maybe it's even some shippers that will utilize your flatbed. And not only that, we're here to help you stay organized, and that seems to be one of the biggest things I've noticed that a lot of people struggle with is staying organized. So with eCarrier Check, will not only find you leads to your shippers and carriers and brokers, other brokers out there, but we'll help you stay organized. Make lists. Keep track of who you're reaching out to. And not only that, I think another cool thing is our software gives you that ability to create your sales call.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And obviously, we're going to be talking about brokering today, and we'll talk about sales and ops and tech and all that aspect today. But, really being prepared for a sales call takes a lot of time and effort. And what we try to do is at least get you, at least ahead of that curve. How do we help you with the sales process, right?
Right.
So, if you guys have questions today, for those of you who are watching, we're obviously going live on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok. To be honest with you, we're not the most hardware driven guys. We got 3 cameras going. This is kind of entertaining for us.
Awesome.
But let's talk shop as far as brokering. So, a couple things, as far as actually getting started in the brokerage world, first and foremost, and we'll talk about tech real quick because it's the easiest thing to kind of get out of the way. You can go out and subscribe to anything and it'll get it taken care of, right? Obviously you're going to need some way to dispatch. I see Brian on. Brian, welcome. Good morning. I'm excited that you're on, man. I appreciate that. But the one thing that you'll have to do is go out and get tech. And there's a lot of tech out there. You are going to need tech for the following, okay? The first thing you're going to need tech for is you really need to be able to dispatch and broker loads, right? So you need a TMS, is what they call it, Transportation Management System. And this is going to be something that'll allow you to, input your carriers in, input your loads in, and theoretically, a TMS, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of good ones out there. But theoretically, you should be able to build a carrier, build a shipper, build a receiver, dispatch the load, see the margin that you're making between the shipper and the broker. And it all should be fairly seamless. And I'm not necessarily going to go out and plug a few of these, but there are several out there, depending on how robust you're going to get or go. If you're going to go big and go home, then get a big TMS. There's some big ones out. If you're getting started, that's where we like to live in our world, is we like to help with those people that are getting started. ITS dispatch or Ascend TMS, right? There's a couple that are out there, and you need to be able to do that. The second tech that you need is going to be, how do you find those carriers, right? eCarrier Check is good. Obviously, we help you find carriers, we help you find shippers, but there's other aspects to finding carriers. Obviously, Nate, we hear of people using a lot of different load boards. Maybe kind of run through, what load boards people are using on a popularity basis.
Yeah, a lot of the people I see are using, DATs, 123 load, and truck stop. So basically, that's what we see as well. Thoughts on seamless AI?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, man. Hey, man, I love when you go live. By the way, man, you're the man. So, thoughts on seamless AI? I'm a big fan of it. It's almost kind of creepy, to be honest with you, what the information you get. I think having a good lead source is really important, and I love that seamless AI actually gives you and scrapes LinkedIn and gives you phone numbers. And I mean, it gives you some crazy stuff. I think it's an important part of your sales tool belt if you're okay with grabbing it, in my opinion. So, from a sales standpoint, obviously the TMS, you need the load boards, like you said. You need some way to find leads. Seamless AI, LinkedIn. Seamless AI is one of those things where I just invested today, so I'll see. Keep us posted, man, because I think it's pretty decent. But you got to find a way to find leads other than buying lists in Google, right? And so it's one of those things that's why we did what we did at eCarrier Check. Is we wanted to help you find leads by equipment, by region, by industry, and we have thousands of leads on there. It's a nice setup, so you can get niche and follow the way it goes. What Seamless AI, specifically is going to be a website that helps you find the right people. For instance, I'll give you an example. eCarrier Check essentially will show you all the leads, right? We'll show you, hey, you need to call ABC Manufacturing because it's got flatbeds. They ship in the Southeast because then it matches with you. But what Seamless AI does essentially is going to be one of those things where it'll give you, well, who's the shipping manager? Who is the logistics manager? Who's the freight manager? Who's the VP of logistics or whatever it may be? And it'll give you, honestly, it's almost crazy creepy. We see those technologies out there that'll tell you stuff. It'll give you some information that you wouldn't have had before that'll help you kind of find the right people. So take a look at that. The other thing that I think you need in your tool belt is, how do you give pricing, right? We talk a lot about pricing. We talk a lot about how does that work? And in some cases, if you're a freight broker, and you're just getting started and you're like, okay, well, how do I give a price? I got a client that actually just, gave me a load, or it said, can you give me a quote? What do I do next? Well, the next tech you need is either A, you're going to have to post a load on Truckstop and DAT to try to get rates from some carrier. B, you're going to have to find a carrier on eCarrier Check and call some of those local people. In my opinion, brokering 101, the first thing you really need to do is relationships. Right now, we're just talking about tech, and we'll get into that. But, you've got to be able to find a way to quote. Right. And there's a couple good, resources out there for you. Another technology that's out there is called greenscreen.ai. They're an incredible platform that'll help you with live real-time spot market rates. And it's one of those things that you can get out there and be able to quote quicker. Because what happens if you get that opportunity to quote and you can't get any carriers to call in, you can't get any carriers to give you a rate? DAT will show you rates, Truckstop will show you rates, but some of those are actually, to a certain extent, maybe some of those rates are skewed a little bit, or, they may not be exactly what you end up paying. So you have to make sure that you're finding something that works exactly for you. So I think a quoting tool is important. The other thing that I think is important, when it comes to technology, we talked about, a TMS, we talked about the live load boards, we talked about pricing. And then, there's different monitoring sites out there or carrier packet sites out there that are really kind of necessary when it comes to sort of the oddities, the paperwork. If there's ever an accident with a load that you have, you've got to make sure that you have your carrier packet, right? So as far as text related, that should get you going. Now, greenscreen.ai is what it is, man. You'll see that. It's really good technology. They're a new company. They've gotten a lot of funding, and they're out there doing what? They're out there just getting pricing for you, essentially. So, so from the tech side of things, that should cover you. Now, tech is still related into the marketing aspect of things. A lot of people connect with us in a lot of ways. It kind of go through, our marketing strategy. We use a lot of platforms. What platforms are we using? And all these platforms are free, really.
Right. A lot of what I've been seeing, encouraging other brokers out there. We had a good Q&A on Wednesday, and I was encouraging this lady, this young lady out, on the East Coast, to get LinkedIn, to show her, to get herself out there and just to show her professionalism, if you will. But we reach out to, to everyone through LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I mean, we usually literally use the whole shebang and to reach out there. And I think that it'd be beneficial for brokers to start doing that as well. You don't have to go YouTube Live or anything like that, obviously, but to set up your account, to set up your image, I think it's important.
Yeah, I had probably one of the most interesting questions come in from one of our clients today. He said, "Hey, I'm a freight broker. I'm fairly new, but I've been connecting with a lot of logistics professionals and freight managers and shipping managers on my LinkedIn." And he said, "Hey, without sounding too salesy, how do I touch base with these people?" And my first thought is, and we're going to keep talking about marketing and we'll transition into sales here, but um, start putting out some content, about your company, about what you do, about how hard you work, or about loads. Every load, I'm a big believer in this. If you're a freight broker, you have moments of opportunity to get content and you're probably not even thinking about it. The first one, have your carrier at pickup and delivery take pictures and send it to you. Have your carrier take a picture of his equipment and send it to you, right? Tag them on Instagram, tag them on TikTok, tag them on Facebook, and start to build some relationships. And this is a good way to build, virtual relationships or TikTok relationships, if you will, or whatever they are. So get out there and start to grab some pictures. Start to tell your story is really what I would express there with that question is how do you differentiate yourself? Well, guess what? You need to start putting out content because that's where the world's going. People look you up and say, "Hey, guess what? I just got a call from NTC Logistics or from Swan or from, ABC Logistics, whoever it is," right? And they say, "Well, let's look them up real quick and see what they're doing." So, we talk about from a marketing standpoint, do you need to start, maybe you make a good flyer. I hear a lot of people talk about flyers. I think flyers are important for the sake of trying to send things out. On a 101, brokering, 101 here, your outbound way of finding clients has got to be fairly big. The first 60, 90 days, and Nate, you drank from a fire hose sort of the first 60, 90 days. How do you get your feet underneath you in, being able to start reaching out to people? How are you reaching out to people? And you do it in a variety of ways. You use text, you use email. Talk through that aspect.
Yeah, well, obviously, here at Carrier Check, I think the best way to start building that relationship is one, being consistent. Send those texts and emails, but follow up with a call. A lot of the info I've heard today or this week, anyways, was I reached out to 75 carriers, but I got zero response. So either there's an issue on maybe the emailing or maybe on their end. We don't obviously you don't really know, but always follow up with that call. Stay consistent. I think consistency is just going to be key. Maybe that carrier doesn't need you this week, but maybe 2 weeks from now he will. So you just really never know. Stay consistent, and then as you are reaching out to these carriers or to these the shippers, take notes for sure. But to get under your feet, you really just got to pick up the phone and do it. And Jared mentions all the time is you start from your first call to your thousands call. That's going to be a lot different.
Absolutely. If you can include in your tech space a CRM, I think this is crucial. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, guys. So Nate said, take notes. You kind of hit it on the head. A good CRM, there's a lot of them out there. There's some free ones out there. I'm keeping track of notes and what I need to accomplish. I use my calendar function really as my CRM. Because not only is it reminding me to do something, but it's also saying, "Hey, you need to call this guy." So, from my standpoint, I definitely like to use a calendar function just for the sake of being able to go out there. So, and that should kind of stream you into, we talked about tech, we talked about marketing from a sales point. Once you get into the day-to-day of brokering, right? And you get a couple of accounts under your belt, they're sending you leads lists, and you're either posting those up and trying to find a carrier to work with, or you're going out on our platform and finding some carriers to work with, right? And starting building those relationships. You really need to make sure you've got a good process in place with not only operations, but let's talk about like soft skills, right? There's going to be moments where you just get pissed off. I mean, really legitimately pissed off. A carrier's not going to do what you asked him to do. A carrier falls off on the load, and you're going to go from 0 to 90, and you're going to be blowing out. And so, when I talk about soft skills, I think you've got to work on a few things. Number one, controlling your temper, right? Controlling even just your emotions, right? There's a lot of ups and downs in this industry. When you get your first load and you make a couple $100 on that load, you're jacked, right? You're up on the clouds. You're just like, I just did this. You know what I mean? And you're calling the shipper and you're calling the receivers, and make sure you're making those calls, guys, because unless you're using some kind of, text locate or something like that, where, it's finding out where your truck is at, or you're doing some kind of check call somehow through maybe a transparency or like a visibility platform. Those are important as well to some clients. But man, I tell you what, the first time you get a truck or a load, you're jacked. It's an emotional high, right? But I can promise you there's going to be a low, and those lows are when you really find yourself reacting in a way that you don't know how to handle it sometimes, right? We talk about emotions a lot on this show. When you get to a point, Nate, where you're just over the top pissed off, where do you seem to go? What seems to be the way you cool yourself off, or what seems to be the way that you keep yourself regulated?
Yeah, well, first off, obviously talking with you, if you got a coworker, definitely go to someone you can trust. But if you don't, maybe you're at home working, right? Go for a walk, or maybe go to a different room. Get out of that little environment for a few minutes. Regroup. I think it's important to, if you go to our last videos, talk about mental health, because we talk about being mentally ready. So if you're not mentally ready, how can you perform that day, or how can you perform for that carrier? So you have to be mentally ready. Take your breaks. Do what you got to do to wind down.
Yeah.
So
because I promise you, there's going to be something that just pisses you off. There's something that goes wrong on loads. It's trucking, it's freight. So find a way to regulate your ups and downs, support and excite, and find, when you get excited and get that first load, get it, do it, right? But when you get pissed off, take a second to breathe and understand the situation. Think about it from an empathetic point of view. Is this guy lying to me, or did he really blow out his tire, or does he really have, something crazy on his trailer? The air brakes went out, whatever it may be. I mean, I've heard every excuse that you've ever heard from a carrier, but think about it from their standpoint too. Stand in their shoes for a minute, because I think, from an empathetic standpoint and gratitude standpoint, we all have to work together. So find some soft skills. The first one is just managing your emotions. Discipline as a broker is probably one of those things that you've got to get good at. Discipline and consistency. Nate talked about this earlier, but how do you stay disciplined? Well, here's how I stay disciplined. Here's a nugget for you guys. I use my phone to send me scheduled texts all day. Hey, did you reach out to this guy? Did you do your check calls? Right now, I don't do this now because I'm selling software, but when I was a broker, I constantly had updates being thrown my way because I can't remember everything. And so why not just allow your technology around you? And every one of you has a computer. Every one of you is one of those things that is doing this. I'm not sure what this is, to be honest.
someone's asked us to go live. That's awesome.
I don't know what that means. So maybe I can go live with them. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Maybe push the button again. We're not sure how that works. So, but find a way to use technology to keep you going. Okay. Also, I really recommend feeding your mind. If you look at my day, I get up every morning, and essentially, I really want to feed my mind with something that's positive, that'll help me grow, that'll help me understand life. Nate's coughing over here, so he's going to step away. But I really want to find a way to be able to feed my mind, learn something new, and get my day started properly, right? The other thing I'm a big believer in is I have notes, all over my mirrors at home. I have notes in my car. This is kind of entertaining. In fact, when I drive my kids to school today, we talked about happiness and how to help others. And we talked about, happiness comes from progress in life, right? And happiness comes from helping people. And so, it's not from things and stuff and, you know, keep buying those things. Those aren't going to bring you happiness. That'll maybe short term, but not in a long term aspect. So we definitely are trying to, when you're starting a brokerage, you've got to be disciplined. You got to be mentally ready, and you got to be ready for the up and down. You all right?
Yeah, I'm alive.
He's back. Nate's back. So, so take the time for that aspect. The mental health part of this world is important. Okay. When we're talking about operations, I think operations is probably one of those things that really sets a lot of brokers apart. When you get the load, you're awarded the load, you broker it, that's not just the end of it, right? You need to, be doing check calls. You need to be picking up the phone. You need to make sure that they are set up with the insurance on, the proper insurance, all these things, right? So it's really important that, if I just got a load from my shipper and I'm doing a carrier packet and I send him my packet, which includes, a W-9, it includes my insurance as a freight broker. It's including some banking information. It'll probably include my surety bond and maybe my authority. But when I get all that information back from the carrier as well, how do we, what do we do with that information? Well, you're going to either use that tech like my carrier packet or something like that, or you're going to upload it into your TMS, or you're going to keep it in a paper file, and you better be prepared to have about 20 file folders out back, right? But you've got to do your due diligence on that carrier. So when it comes to operations, let's talk through this. We need to get their carrier packet back, and that insurance, their cargo insurance, better cover that load, right? Hey, what's going on? We got, I'm honored to be a part of this channel. That's awesome. Nice having you on, Kay. I appreciate the comment there. But you got to have their packet. Their insurance better cover the cargo that you have. If you're running power onlys, you better have some trailer interchange insurance. And you got to have a carrier broker agreement signed and sent back and executed, right? And the reason why we have to do all this due diligence is if there is by chance an accident, right? Things happen, not all the time, but things do happen. Who covers what and when and where and why, and insurance and claims can get kind of dirty. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to deal with it. And it's one of those things that you've got to make sure that you take the time to get that all set up. So you get that load, you get that proper paperwork, keep that paperwork in a file somewhere. E-carrier check, we offer like a due diligence process. Talk through that for me, Nate, will you?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. You read my mind there. So not only obviously doing that due diligence on that end, but doing due diligence with an e-carrier check would give you that ability as well. Approve a carrier, reject a carrier. And we keep that organized for you too. So keep something to keep off your plate. We'll do it for you. Yeah. And literally we'll take you back to that time and date you approve that carrier and just keep track of that for you.
Yeah. I think it's important that you do. That you go out and take the time for that. So once you've gotten that paperwork interchange, all that aspect, here's some things that add value to your shipper. Send a bill of lading, right? Hey, here's a bill of lading. It's got your shipper, your destination. It's got the weights. You're going to give this to the carrier. Here's the carrier. Here's when the carrier is going to get there. Okay. You've got to add some value. Don't just be a broker and you get the load and you move. Over communicate. I mean, on a whole nother level. The people that really were great clients for me, I ended up being able to get in, I was in texting relationships with them. Hey, guy's going to be there at 10 a.m. this morning. Just give you a heads up. The name of their company is Killer Transportation, right? Or whatever it is. So it's one of those things that we want to help you, show you, more value as a freight broker. Okay. So take the time to do that. Check in with your carrier, see how he's doing. If you guys think about it, and I know we have some carriers on our channel, but these carriers are out there essentially by themselves. Some have their wives with them and some may have a team, which could be good or bad depending on, body odor levels, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that think about them for a moment and going, okay, they're alone. They may not know the town. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. But call them and see how they're doing. Have a conversation with them. They're people too, and they're kind of your clients as well, right? You're paying them to do a good job, to represent you as a broker, to represent that shipper. And so taking the time to have a conversation with them, how you doing? Where are you at? You don't have to become best friends. I'm just saying over communicate from the point of that shipment all the way through. Okay.
And we've seen a lot of truckers, honestly, becoming freight brokers. So if you are, once a driver and now a freight broker, you understand what those carriers are going through. So think back to when you were a driver. How can you help out that carrier?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, once the load is picked up, you got a signed bill of lading. Communicate with the driver, finding out, when are you going to be there theoretically. Obviously, there can be hiccups or weather or whatever it may be, but find out when they'll be there and then call the receiver. Now, we didn't talk about this in the sales and marketing side, but here's another lead, right? That receiver is not your client, but it could be. But take the time to call that receiver and say, hey, hey, this is it. We've got another potential client that's a soft or a warm lead. Hey, I'm bringing you some freight from ABC Manufacturing. I want to let you know my driver's going to be there about 10 a.m. Okay. Don't close them on the first friggin' call. Don't you can, right? But just let's start to build. Hey, this is Jared over at ABC. We'll have our truck there about 10 o'clock tomorrow from your vendor. And we just want to let you know, right? So there's the first call. The second call. Now let's try to find them on LinkedIn. Let's try to find them on social media. Then work the process. Hey, this is Jared. Looks like we're going to be there here in about an hour. I did want to ask you, how often are you shipping out of your facility and start to figure out what they do? I don't know how often, Nate, we talk to people and they're like, well, how am I supposed to find shippers? And I'm like, well, how many people have you delivered to? Those are all people that theoretically you could be calling, right? So take the time to call those people, take the time to build a relationship with those people. And, from an operational standpoint, once that load's delivered, let's get into the paperwork. Now, here we go. Okay. That load's not done. We need a signed, free, clear we need a free, clear bill of lading, right? Load delivered, no damage. We want the receiver to get that over. The driver needs to bill you so that you can bill the shipper, right? You need to be able to show that shipper, hey, here's that bill of lading, and we just delivered this thing to you. Please don't skip operational steps. Make sure that you've got an AR and an AP process down to a science. You want to differentiate yourself? Pay your loads to your carriers quick. Okay. Now, a lot of carriers use factoring companies, but get them paid. And it doesn't have to be, 7 days, but get them paid in 10. You want to differentiate yourself as a freight broker? Pay your carriers to be those relationships. They'll call you back. I promise you. Hey, what are you doing? If you start averaging 10-day pay, sign me up. You know what I mean? And I know some carriers need it for sooner, and that's why they factor. They've got fuel expenses and all kinds of crazy stuff. I get that. But start to pay those people. From a shipper standpoint, now let's flip over to the shipper standpoint. If you don't get, let's just take this down to a cell phone bill. When was the last time you got your cell phone bill?
On the first, I'll get it again here shortly.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Do you like opening your cell phone bill?
No.
Do you understand it?
Not really.
Exactly. It's one of those things. Make your billing simple and make your billing quick and precise. If you can get billing to your shippers as quick as possible, you're going to get cash flow coming in. And guess what? This business is all about cash flow. We need cash flow. We have to have cash flow, folks. So get your billing processes down, going out and going in, because this is what's going to make or break you as a freight broker. And I know people hate this. I get it. But if you wait 6 months, 3 months, even a month, hell, I don't even remember what I ate a month ago. How about a load? You start moving 60 loads a week or 60 a day. you become a fairly large brokerage, right, or a big one, how are you supposed to remember? Hopefully, okay, hopefully your TMS has some kind of billing function in it, okay, where you're able to receive invoices from your carriers, you're able to share invoices to your shippers, and just be brutally transparent. We talked about soft skills. How important is honesty in this industry?
Yeah, that's good that you mentioned that, because we have obviously utilized the carrier check by calling carriers to see what they would like to hear. They want to be told the truth. They just want honesty, and honesty is huge in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when things go wrong. When things go wrong, whether it's the carrier's issue, whether it's something with the shipper, you've got to be, and these are hard conversations, folks. I get it. I've been a part of some crazy conversations that I did not want to have, but I was honest with everybody. I was honest with the carrier. I was honest with the shipper. And honestly, you know what? Here's something that's kind of interesting. Okay, is just take the time to think about everybody in the situation. If it's your mistake, own up to it. Okay. For those of you that could be dispatchers on this show, there's dispatchers that are on our channel. And if you represent a carrier, I want you to think about something that's really interesting or really unique is, how do you add value to those people? Is you're going to add value by understanding how hours of service work. Because if you have to communicate to a shipper when your driver's there and you don't realize that you're going from central time zone to mountain time zone, and you forgot that he had to take a 30-minute break, or you forgot that he had to do a reset, take the time, right, to understand how to count hours. Okay. This is another operational thing. As you guys are drivers even, or brokers, as a broker, understand how hours of service work.
And throw that in your communication too. If you're emailing, throw in Central or Pacific. There's a lot of emails I even get too that people are telling me their times, and we set up a meeting or a call, and we're off completely different, time zones. And that's obviously on my end too, but it also takes two. So I think just over communicating, like you mentioned, it's going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So understand hours of service, understand how that works. It's a good operational aspect, to be honest with you guys. And then understand miles. How do you add a little bit of value to people? Understand miles. Understand, hey, when you're a broker and you post up the load, be ready to have conversations. Be prepared, right? And how are you going to be prepared? You need to know from the shipper what you need. If you've got a flatbed load, do you need tarps? Well, what size of tarps? Do they need 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot? Do you need pipe stakes, right? What are the loading hours, right? There's a lot of operational things that you need to start asking. So when you get that load from your shipper in an operational setting, hey, what time are you guys open and close? What time's the receiver open and close? What do I need on this load to make it work? Do I need dunnage? Do I need pipe stakes? Do I have to make an appointment, right? Is it a situation where there's lumbers involved on the receiving end? Heaven forbid, right? So sitting around, and Kay, thanks for sharing. We appreciate that. But it's definitely one of those things that you need to ask. You're only as good as the questions you ask. So if you didn't ask more than 5 questions to your shipper on a load, you probably need to ask more, right? Do you need a bill of lading? When do you close? When do we open? What kind of appointment is there, right? And you'll get those things out of the way as you're building your sales process with shippers, and you start to set up with shippers. And hey, how do you bill? What documents do you need when you bill, right? So there's a lot of things when you're setting up with a shipper, and I call those operational things, right? Maybe you have somebody that helps you with operations. Set up a time where you can call and say, hey, just a heads up. I literally, I just set up with this guy. Can you call him and find out who accounts payable is or who accounts receivable is? And take the time to get those people and those relationships all set up, because the accounting people, especially if you set up with a medium to large size shipper, okay, the accounting people sometimes don't talk to the logistics people, right? how often do we hear that? Even, in the brokerage that's really close here, it's actually just down the street. How often do we hear that the, ops versus sales and the AP gal sits in a different part of the, than where the brokers are, and the brokers don't communicate. So make sure you need to always be asking yourself, who can I communicate to add more value, and who can I communicate to make sure that my processes are seamless? Because we've got to make sure your billing's on point, your questions for operations are on point, and it's one of those things that you need to understand the industry. So if you're a freight broker, take the time, learn those questions that you need to ask. Hit us up, honestly. I'll walk you through
Write
it.
them down. Write it. Make a cheat sheet or whatever. Put it by your desk. Obviously, if you're just starting off, I think you should do that. Honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. Have a dispatch sheet. I think there was a guy that actually. I think I could get one. If you guys hit me up, I'll send you one. Okay. I also have some crazy questions that I could send you as well. So not only from a sales standpoint, but an operational standpoint. When I was doing full logistics sales, that was a different sale than maybe just spot market brokering, right? That was where I was calling and I would talk to a CEO and we would talk through that. And then I would talk to the shipping manager and find out some inefficiencies. And then I talk to accounting and find out inefficiencies and see how they're doing things. So take the time to ask those questions. Okay. Last but certainly not least, I think it's how do you differentiate yourself as a freight broker? Okay. We talked about tech, we talked about sales, operations, marketing. How do you differentiate yourself? There's a lot of different ways. We talk about your billing process. Imagine if you actually wrote a handwritten note to your carrier and said, "Hey, thanks for driving this load so safe. Appreciate it. Here's your check." Right now, if it's going to a factoring company, I probably wouldn't do that. But if it's actually going to the carrier and they actually are getting that check and they go to the bank or they're setting up with ACH, put a note in the ACH form. Thanks for the load. Thanks for hauling the load for me. There's a memo field when you send out an ACH. Write a handwritten note.
I like that idea.
When was the last time you got a handwritten note?
Jeez, I don't remember. Never. That happened in a while.
When you got one, though, it makes you feel
appreciated.
Oh my gosh. And everyone wants to feel appreciated, wants to feel belonged. It's those soft skills, guys. We're just trying to find a way to be kind. So write your shippers notes. Send them a pizza every now and then. Taking the time to learn as a broker more about this industry, because guess what? Maybe as a broker, maybe you need to offer, roadside services to your carriers, or maybe you need to offer a 24-hour line to not only your shippers but carriers. Because I promise you, if you're moving a load today, somebody's going to want to get a hold of you when you leave tonight at 5:02, right? So take the time to find those little things to differentiate yourself in this industry, and normally those things are soft skills, right? It's a handwritten note. God, everyone is so damn busy. This drives me nuts. My kids, they're running out. They're just so busy, and I'm like, you're 10. Stop it. Yeah. But they probably get that a little bit from myself and my wife, and it's like, okay, how do we slow down, think about others, heaven forbid, and we try to figure out how to, do something that's going to differentiate yourself as a freight broker. Here's something that's kind of interesting from a differential standpoint. Justin is a guy I interviewed on our YouTube channel. He's a sales guy that I used to work with. Really cool guy. And he's been brokering for a while, and he does, sales. His sales is just different. In fact, at one point, and you'll find this entertaining, he actually took the time to send a plastic foot to a shipper. And in the box, it just said, "Just trying to get my foot in the door." And it was his business card, a plastic foot, which is weird because you can imagine that. But there's a lot of ways. You don't have to be cheesy, but I thought it was kind of funny. Right? I think it's kind of funny. But there's a lot of ways to differentiate yourself, not only with your relationships, but with trying to get in with prospects, right? And that can be by sending a foot, by sending a thank you card, sending an article. Anytime you get an article, you're reading an article, whether it's online or not, especially if it has something to do with any of your carriers. Hey, guys, I see fuel issues are becoming an issue. Here's an article. Maybe this will help you understand things a little bit more. Or hey, here's some fuel rates out on the receiving end, just so you're aware. When you get to the receiver, you're going to be paying $5.55 a gallon, right? So find ways to differentiate yourself at all three levels, and those three levels are going to be, your drivers, the accounts payable and receivable, and it's those shippers, right, and your clients. So find those people that can help you, uh, you know, that you can help and differentiate yourself. Okay. In my world, I'm a big believer in communicating and finding unique ways to communicate. And just if you help other people, I promise you'll get to your goals. I'm also a big believer in that. So, Nate, I really don't have anything else to really go on. I know I've been ranting for about 40 minutes here. Do you have any other thoughts on brokering, on something that we missed today?
No, I think you pretty much hit everything that we should be talking about. Obviously, if there's ever any questions out there, please reach out to us. If you want to see more of our software, go to ecarrycheck.com, get on the demo. We got demos every Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So check us out. We have a really great community. You're going to get a lot of good info. This guy has seen a lot of the freight industry, and it's really good info you could be gaining, and just the people that you can link up with in our community. There's people out there going through the same thing as you are. So come to our community, meet with other people, meet with us. We'll get you help.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of great people that are around us. Dan mentions he was just on the phone with Shaggy. He's a good guy. He helps with training. He's got a heart of gold. Dan, I appreciate you jumping on today and being a part of it. Guys, have an awesome weekend. Enjoy your family, and we'll catch up next Friday live Q&A. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and if you need help, reach out. We want to help you. So
okay, we'll see you on Monday. Can't wait to see you.
Thanks, guys. TikTok.